machine, navigating a physical reality that depends entirely on an unseen, unconscious code. We trust the signals pulsing through our nerves implicitly. But there is a hidden fragility to this system. The mechanisms keeping us tethered to the physical world can, without warning, simply vanish. The machinery remains intact, but the connection to the self is fundamentally erased.
Imagine the visceral horror of opening your eyes and looking at your hands resting on the sheets, yet feeling absolutely nothing. You move your legs, but you have no idea where they are in space unless you are staring directly at them. The body you have inhabited your entire life is suddenly a foreign object, utterly disconnected from your perception. The severed connection is proprioception. This biological code, a term coined by Sir Charles Sherrington, is the mechanism that tells the brain exactly where the limbs are without the need to look at them. Its sudden absence is the death of the internal GPS. The near-total loss of touch and proprioception completely severs the unconscious tether to physical reality. A terrifying duality emerges. The motor system is completely unaffected. The muscles possess the exact same strength they did the day before. Yet, the subject is nightmarishly immobile. The biological hardware is perfectly functional, ready to receive commands, but the operating system required to execute and monitor those commands has been completely deleted.
This is the precise reality experienced by a 19-year-old named Ian Waterman. He suffered a sudden, total deafferentation of his body from the neck down. His brain was abruptly and permanently cut off from the sensory feedback and proprioception necessary to command his physical form.
The inciting incident was a never-diagnosed fever that triggered a devastating autoimmune reaction. This biological glitch systematically destroyed the large sensory neurons responsible for position and movement. It surgically targeted the large afferent fibers innervating the muscle spindles and the Golgi tendon organs. Crucially, pain and temperature pathways were retained. He could feel a burn, but the precise data stream for physical coordination was permanently severed.
The resulting devastation lies in the destruction of the body schema. Within the lytic cognitive architecture, this is known as the current body schema, a vital kinesthetic model of effector variables that the brain uses to act on the environment. Under normal conditions, this model is updated automatically and entirely unconsciously. But without incoming sensory feedback to reinforce it, these effector variables became static. They simply decayed out of the internal model entirely.
The profound isolation of this condition is found in the stark contrast between what is preserved and what is lost. The intact hardware maintains motor function, pain sensation, and temperature perception. The muscles can fire, the skin can burn, but the deleted software, the vanished body schema, the internal GPS, the kinesthetic model, means the body exists merely as a foreign object. It is not just a loss of feeling, it is a total, systemic loss of control over the physical self. For those with a functioning body schema, walking in the dark or reaching for a glass without looking is an unconscious luxury. But when the internal GPS is deleted, the environment itself becomes a lethal obstacle. Darkness, or even the simple act of closing one's eyes, equates to a literal death sentence for movement. To survive, missing biological signals must be replaced by a relentless procedural horror, a manual visual lock. Vision and motor imagery must replace unconscious prediction. Every single step requires establishing direct visual contact with the limbs. The brain manually calculates force, direction, and velocity. Walking is no longer fluid locomotion. It is an intensely calculated act of controlled falling.
If the lights go out, or if he simply closes his eyes, he literally collapses into a heap. The brain disconnects entirely from the hardware without that constant visual supervision. A single moment of lapsed attention, a mere second where the visual lock is broken, has fatal consequences.
Driven by pure survival, the human will essentially recoded the interface. With the unconscious body schema completely lost to deafferentation, the mind is forced to rely on the conscious body image. The visual perception of the physical form must be weaponized to construct a virtual feedback loop. This forces the conscious mind to bear the immense cognitive weight usually reserved for automatic biological code.
But the deletion of the body schema yields a deeply baffling mystery regarding the hands. When the hands are disconnected from vision, logic dictates they should fail entirely. Yet, the reality of human movement presents an anomaly that directly challenges our understanding of the brain's internal wiring. Conscious movement demands topokinetic accuracy, the precise spatial location of the hands relative to each other in physical space. When a mind consciously plans and monitors a movement, it requires this exact spatial map. Without vision to provide the manual lock, these conscious gestures fail completely. The hands will miss each other or simply move randomly in midair. A strange paradox exists between two distinct typologies of movement. Constructed gestures are those consciously planned and visually monitored, requiring intense topokinetic accuracy. If the visual lock is broken, they fall apart. Throwaway gestures, however, are completely spontaneous, unattended movements that occur automatically during speech. The stunning revelation is that these throwaway gestures happen flawlessly, even when the conscious system is entirely blind.
These spontaneous, unattended movements remain completely morphokinetically accurate. They retain flawless form and synchronize perfectly with the rhythm of speech, entirely without visual or proprioceptive feedback. The throwaway gestures somehow bypass the corrupted motor feedback circuits entirely. They manifest precisely in physical space, despite the severed connection to the limbs.
This anomaly reveals a dedicated thought-language-hand link deeply embedded in the architecture of the brain. The language system possesses the profound ability to pulse the hands directly into shapes, a triangle, a wave. Even when the biological hardware is entirely disconnected from sensory awareness, the language center simply overrides the dead proprioceptive circuits.
A total, sudden deafferentation is a rare anomaly. But the underlying mechanics of this biological glitch expose a terrifying reality about diseases that are far more common. The exact same breakdown may already be occurring within the brains of millions, operating under a different name.
Research demonstrates a systemic decay in Parkinson's disease that mirrors this nightmare. As the disease progresses, motor output becomes persistently noisy. This creates a returning stream of corrupted sensory data heavily degraded by biological bit rot, forming an unstable motor percept. These corrupted movements re-enter the nervous system as pure noise, forcing the patient into a manual visual lock just to move.
This returning stream of sensory feedback is known as kinesthetic reafference. When kinesthetic reafference becomes consumed by biological bit rot, the brain's ability to maintain a stable, unconscious understanding of its own body dissolves. The corrupted data prevents the formation of a stable motor percept, forcing the mind to manually supervise the body just to maintain control.
The stochastic signatures of people with severe Parkinson's begin to systematically approach the signatures of Ian Waterman in the dark. This is a terrifying convergence. A progressive neurological disease, through the sheer corruption of sensory motor input, eventually mimics the exact parameters of the sudden total lights-out catastrophe of complete deafferentation.
We live inside a remarkably fragile web of signs, messages, and unseen biological codes. We only notice the existence of this operating system when the code fundamentally breaks. The glitch is patient, resting silently beneath the surface of our assumed physical reality.
Operating a body manually is a relentless, exhausting reality. Surviving 4 decades living entirely without touch or proprioception, experiencing the weightlessness of microgravity, and running a successful business requires a daily marathon of immense, unbroken focus. The individual must navigate an existence where every head cold, every moment of fatigue, and every fused light bulb threatens a total physical collapse. Yet it proves that while the biological code can be permanently deleted, a powerful human will can effectively recode the corrupted interface.
The stability of our physical reality is entirely conditional. A limb falling asleep or a sudden loss of coordination during a fever are microdoses of deafferentiation. If your internal GPS begins to fail, the world doesn't just get harder to navigate, it begins to dissolve entirely. When did you last feel your body glitch?